Graveyard golf, the sport of kings. It was a sultry Boston summer night. The air was chewy, the bugs over-friendly, and if you closed your eyes and listened real hard, you could almost hear the mildew growing under your armpits. I was sitting on the front porch knocking back a few six-packs with my good buddies and fellow dropouts from reality, T.H. Bismarck and Peter Shan. We were talking about the old days, making them up as we went along, when Peter turned to TH and said, "You know what I could really go for tonight? A quick 18 holes of graveyard golf." TH turned to Peter and said, "No way, Jack. Not after what happened last time." I chugged the last half of my beer, popped another and asked, "What in the nine worlds is graveyard golf?" Peter looked at me as a Victorian lord might have looked at a savage who had just pissed in his teacup, and said, "You mean to tell me you've never played graveyard golf? It's the sport of kings, my man." "More like the sport of pinheads," grumbled TH. "It's the sport of the intelligentsia," Peter maintained. "Byron, Shelley, all those cats played it. Old TH here was a past master of the game before he let one tiny unpleasant incident put him off the sport." "Tiny incident?" TH roared like a wounded grizzly he so resembled. "Why, you chuckle-headed beef-brained baboon!" "How was it played?" I hastily interjected, hoping to avoid an unpleasant tiff or multiple murder. Peter shook his head with scorn and contempt and said, "You call yourself a vampire and you don't even know from graveyard golf? It is to laugh. Okay. First thing you need to do is get yourself a graveyard and some golf clubs." "I'm sure he's already figured that out for himself," TH interrupted. "If he's got to hear the whole stupid rundown, he might as well hear it from an expert, not a worthless sack of shit duffer who couldn't even make a simple putt." Without digging a new grave with his 9-iron. Now Peter here has already mentioned two of the prerequisites, to wit, a set of gloves and a graveyard, but he left out the most important thing, golf balls painted with phosphorescent paint. You don't paint your balls, you'll spend all night beating the bush. "I'll bet he paints his balls and beats his bush every time," Peter mumbled. TH affected not to hear. Now there are many variations on the game in different parts of the world, but the two styles most popular in this country are the English and the Australian. In the English style, each player has a full set of clubs and they take turns. It's a gentleman's game. "How else will you play golf except with a full set of clubs and taking turns?" I inquired. "Australian," he replied pedantically. In the Australian style play, each player gets one club and one ball and races the other players through the course to the 18th hole. Body blocks are acceptable, choke holds are penalized, and anybody caught hitting another player below the belt with a club gets thrown out of the game. Headshots are also verboten unless you get them on the backswing and can convince the other players it was purely unintentional. In the Australian game, you gotta be ready to take a few lumps. It's less like golf than a combination of hockey, a broken field race, and guerrilla warfare. Now in graveyard golf, there aren't many holes per se, just targets you gotta hit with your ball before you can go on with the course. Certain gravestones, funeral urns, trees, etc., depending on the landscaping and architecture of your particular course. The last hole by tradition consists of sailing your ball through the window of a previously designated mausoleum. It's a trickiest shot of all and requires great skill. "Hey, remember that great course out in Malden?" Peter interjected. "The designated mausoleum hadn't been opened in 40 years. Then some old fossil aunt kicks off In France, they bring her back to Malden for the burial, a big-time funeral for the old bat. Open up the designated mausoleum and 43 golf balls roll out onto the lawn. That was the end of play on that course, believe you me. Tell me about the unfortunate incident, I prodded. Don't you dare, growled Bismarck, already resigned to the inevitable. Now on the night to which I allude, Peter started his tale. Me and Lee Trevino here were over at Wally Plod's house knocking back wild turkey with rum chasers like we used to do when we was young and suicidal. Anyways, we're really getting baked and Trevino here starts harassing me about my game, saying I couldn't hit the broadside of Mussolini's tomb on Judgment Day and stuff like that. Anyways, one thing leads to another and before I know it, I'm challenging the big lug to a game of down and dirty Australian at Mount Auburn Cemetery. I bet my entire collection of Hustler against his question mark and the Mysterians albums. We're talking grudge match. We want Plod to referee but he says he's going to hang and watch the Stooges on UHF, so like we're out of here. We pick up our clubs and hit the links. Now let me set the stage, said Tage, drawn into the tale despite himself. Mount Auburn Cemetery, as you can well imagine, is a connoisseur's course. It's got mausoleums, stone angels, towering obelisk, trees, water hazards, and it goes on for acres and acres. When you've done 18 holes on Mount Auburn, you know you've been in a fight. Anywho, Peter butted in. We get there about midnight, which is like traditional for graveyard golf, and it's perfect playing conditions. There's just enough moon to see where you're going, but not enough to make you conspicuous. We hop the fence, tee up on old man Winthrop's grave, and we're off. I slam my ball off the big stone angel, and it goes off into the rough. Bismarck here hits his perfectly. It bounces off the angel's head and lines him up Vic Damone for the next shot. And that's all I see because I'm beating the bush like a maniac. I finally get my ball up on the green and Bismarck here is already 2 holes ahead of me, but that's okay. Because that shot means getting the ball into the knot hole of the old willow tree, and I figure it's going to be tied up there for a while. I line up my putt. The green is a family plot, and I gotta send my ball between 2 rows of graves and smack it off the old man's tomb. I get it in 2, and by that time, I see Bismarck pulling his ball out of the tree. I'm starting to get shook because I know the next hole is a piece of cake. I know he can sink it in that stone urn in 2 strokes, so I take a gamble and whack that ball like a Babe Ruth, trying to sink it. In 1, I think I must have used mind over matter because that baby sails through the air like a heat-seeking missile right into the knot hole, and I'm cursing out Plot for watching the Stooges when he should be here to verify my first hole in 1 ever. I trip on one of them tiny tombstones they have for babies who died of typhoid and knock that sucker right out of the ground. My shin feels like someone hit it with a baseball bat. I'm limping like Quasimodo and it takes me 5 strokes to hit the urn. I got lucky though. Arnold Palmer here just sliced off into the memorial pond. I catch up with him and we're neck and neck through the meditation grove. We bounce off the Cabot obelisk on the same shot, gallop over the roof of the memorial chapel like a field of hockey stars, and then disaster strikes. My ball veers off into a new dug grave. I ignore my poor bashed leg and jump into the hole while shithead here goes galloping over the Revolutionary War graves, cackling like a cockatiel on laughing gas. I toss my ball up the hole and climb after it. I'm playing like a madman, trying to make up for lost time. My mind's a blur. I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm sinking and right and left. I'm catching up. I'm right behind him. I turn the corner and my heart sinks into my shoes. He's lining up that last shot. The moon shining on the designated mausoleum like a gas station sign. I'm mentally kissing 10 years of hustler babes goodbye, wondering how I'm gonna get the pages pried apart from him without ripping the paper. No way, I decide. I leap, trying for a body check, but Godzilla here bats me away without even turning his head. He swings and the ball sails right home to Mama. A more beautiful shot I ain't never seen, but I'm not stopping to admire. There's still one way out for me. In graveyard golf, if both players arrive at the last tee together, the losing player gets a free shot. Free shot. If he can make the mausoleum shot in one and knock it over the funeral urn, he ties up the game and there's got to be a rubber match. I never got a chance. No sooner had TH ball sailed through the window than the door to that mausoleum slammed open like doomsday on a half shell. A rotting, reeking corpse, moldering, tattered shroud, stood in the doorway, made a face, and spit out golf's ball like a cannon shot. God damn it, he screamed. I'm sick of you punks tearing up my eternal resting place with your bonehead games. You like this graveyard so much, I'm gonna fix you so you can stay here forever. And then he started shambling towards us. Wait a minute, I objected. Do you really expect me to believe that? Believe what? TH shrugged. It was just Pinhead Blood in his fucking Halloween costume. Can you imagine the nerve of that guy? Peter exclaimed indignantly. Here we were in a dead heat, in a really important game, the most important game ever played, and that jackass had to pull a stupid stunt like that, whooping and hollering in a way that was sure to bring down the heat. And before I could sink my free shot, man, we couldn't see for the red. We grabbed every golf ball we had and started stoning the motherfucker. Then Macho Man here picks him up and tosses him in the lagoon. He was thrashing and hollering like a nun at a gangbang. And then the cops came and took us all in. What happened then? I asked. What happened then? TH explained morosely. Was that since Dickhead here can't even sink a pot without raising divots deep enough to bury a Viking chieftain and his ship, we were the first people in 200 years to be indicted for grave robbing in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Yeah, piped Peter. If my sister hadn't been doing that lawyer, we would have done time for sure. Anyway, it's a lucky thing for Tish that I didn't get my free shot. Otherwise, he'd have been out a whole bunch of question mark and the mysterious records. Why, you little whistle? Tish roared back at him. You couldn't hit the Great Pyramid of Cheops at high noon with an aerial map and a bombardier. Ah, you're full of it. You're completely lacking in elementary motor skills, you little twerp. Oh yeah? If you're so hot, what do you say to a little game of Smith & Wesson Mumbly Peg? Oh no, you don't. Remember what happened last time.